All right, let's dive into a story that really makes you think about those moments when the impossible just happens.
Imagine this. It's the middle of the night, a hospital room, dim, sterile, smelling like antiseptic and stale air. The only real light comes from those glowing medical monitors and a pale street lamp outside, making weird shadows dance on the floor. You're looking at an old man's hand, wrinkled, knuckles white, gripping the bed sheet like it's the only thing keeping him from floating away. And the sound, it's a labored, rattling breath, punctuated by the frantic, fast beeping of a heart monitor. But here's the thing, that monitor wasn't just beeping anymore, it was screaming. A warning no one else was in the room to hear. It was a chaotic rhythm that just meant one thing. The end was here. Robert Hayes was right in the middle of all that noise. 72 years. Think about that. 72 years of building houses with his own hands, of raising 2 kids, of burying his wife. It had all come down to this miserable, desperate struggle for one single satisfying breath. His lungs felt like they were packed with wet cement. The pain in his chest? It was a physical weight, an anchor dragging him down through the mattress, past the floor, into a cold, deep ocean he couldn't swim out of. Just an hour before, his daughter Sarah had been there. She kissed his forehead, her tears warm on his skin, and he'd somehow scraped together every last bit of strength to whisper 3 words to her.
"I'm not afraid." He lied.
He was terrified, not of what came. Robert had made his peace with God years ago. No, he was terrified of the drowning, the pure panic rising in his throat as the air just wouldn't come. The room started to spin. Those shadows in the corners seemed to stretch, reaching for him. He squeezed his eyes shut, bracing for that final, terrifying plunge into darkness. But then, suddenly, that chaotic beeping smoothed out, a gentle, steady rhythm, and with it, a soft whoosh, like a cool breeze just floated into that stifling room. The plunge never came. Instead, a wave of cool air brushed his fevered cheek. It smelled faintly of ozone. You know that clean, sharp smell right before a summer thunderstorm hits? That. And the pain, that agonizing vice grip on his chest, it didn't just slowly fade, it vanished instantly. Robert gasped, a real deep, clear lungful of air. Oh, it was the sweetest thing he had ever tasted. His eyes snapped open, wide with shock, half expecting to see a team of doctors rushing in with crash carts. But the room was empty, except for one chair tucked away in the corner near the window. Only, it wasn't empty anymore. Sitting there, casually swinging his legs back and forth, was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 9 or 10 years old. He had scuffed blue jeans with a patch on the left knee and a faded red striped t-shirt, a mop of messy brown hair. He held a worn-out leather baseball glove in his lap, idly punching the pocket with his small fist. He didn't look like a ghost. He wasn't glowing. He looked as solid as the chair he sat in. He just looked up from his glove and met Robert's terrified gaze with eyes that were impossibly calm, ancient, and kind. That moment, when the impossible happens, when the crushing weight of reality is suddenly lifted by something we can't explain, that is the core of the human experience. It's why we're here, sharing these stories. We crave that connection to the mysterious, that assurance that even in the darkest, most isolated rooms, we are never truly alone. If you believe there's more to this life than just biology and coincidence, and you want to be part of a community that honors these final sacred moments, go ahead and click that subscribe button right now. And down in the comments, tell me, have you ever felt a calming presence in a moment of crisis, something you couldn't explain? Because Robert Hayes was about to realize that his lie, "I'm not afraid," was about to be tested in a way he never imagined. Robert tried to speak, but his voice was rusty from days of disuse. He coughed, a clear cough, not that rattling hack from before. "Who?" Robert croaked, squinting at this unexpected visitor. "How did you get in here? Visiting hours are over." The boy stopped punching his glove. He smiled, a gentle expression that seemed far too knowing for such a young face. "The doors don't really apply to me, Mr. Hayes." His voice was light, like wind chimes, yet it filled the room with an undeniable authority. Robert looked around frantically for the call button. I need a nurse. I don't know what's happening." "You know exactly what's happening, Robert," the boy said, dropping the formality. He hopped off the chair and walked toward the bed. He didn't make a sound on the linoleum floor. "You were drowning, and now you're not. Better?" Robert took another deep breath, testing this miracle. It was true. The crushing pressure was gone. He felt lightheaded, not from lack of oxygen, but from the sheer relief of it all. Am I dead?" Robert asked, his voice trembling now. "Not yet," the boy said simply. He leaned against the bed railing, resting his chin on his folded arms, looking at Robert with an intense curiosity. "But you were very close. You were fighting very hard against the current." "Who are you?" Robert managed to ask again. The boy just shrugged. "Does it matter? I'm here. That's what matters. I'm here so you don't have to be afraid of the drowning part." There was no deception in the boy's face, just a matter-of-fact calm that was strangely contagious. Robert felt his shoulders relax against the pillows. The panic that had defined the last 3 days began to recede, replaced by a profound stillness. The boy's presence acted like a balm, soothing not just his ruined lungs, but the frayed edges of his mind. "Why me?" Robert whispered. "I'm nobody special, just an old carpenter." "Everyone thinks they're nobody special at the end," the boy mused, looking at his baseball glove again. "But no one's story is empty. You're not afraid of dying, Robert. I heard you tell your daughter that, and part of you meant it. You're tired." Robert nodded slow. Tears welled in his eyes, spilling over onto his cheeks. He hadn't cried in front of anyone since Martha, his wife, died 10 years ago. I am so tired." "But you lied to her too," the boy said softly. "It wasn't an accusation. It was just a statement of fact. You are afraid, but not of what's coming. You're afraid of what you're leaving behind unfinished." The silence in the room stretched. The boy didn't push. He just waited, holding the space, making it safe for the truth to finally surface. Robert closed his eyes. The absence of physical pain made the emotional pain that much sharper. It rose up in him, a bitter bile he'd been swallowing for 15 years. "I was a builder," Robert began, his voice stronger now. 45 years. I framed houses. You work with wood, you learn things. You learn that if the foundation isn't level, nothing else matters. You learn that you can't force a beam to fit where it doesn't belong. It'll just crack later. He opened his eyes and looked at the boy, who was listening with rapt attention. "I was good with wood. It made sense. It followed rules. People." Robert shook his head weakly. "People don't follow rules, especially the ones you love the most." "Your son," the boy said. Again, not a question, just a knowing statement. A sob caught in Robert's throat. "David, yes." Robert looked at his hands, calloused and scarred even now. He didn't want to be a builder. He wanted to paint. Art. Can you imagine? I told him it was nonsense. I told him real men build things you can stand on, not things you hang on a wall to look at. The memory was 15 years old, but it felt like yesterday. The shouting in the kitchen, Martha crying in the corner, David, 18 years old, eyes blazing with the stubbornness that matched Robert's own. "He left that night," Robert whispered, the shame burning him. "Packed a bag and walked out. Said he couldn't breathe in my house anymore." The irony of that statement hit Robert hard. Now, at the very end, he knew exactly what that felt like. 15 years. I never called him. Not once. Martha tried, but he changed his number. Then she got sick, and
I was too proud. I thought he walked away, he has to walk back. Foolish old man's pride.
Tears streamed freely now, soaking the collar of his hospital gown. Sarah, my sweet Sarah, she's been here every day. She took care of Martha, now she's taking care of me. She's the good one, and I love her more than anything. But he looked at the boy, pleading for understanding. But I lied when I said I wasn't afraid. I'm terrified of dying without David knowing that I was wrong, that I was proud of him for having the guts to be different than me. I'm afraid I'm going to meet Martha on the other side, and she's going to ask me, "Did you fix it, Bob?" And I'm going to have to tell her no. I'm afraid my foundation is cracked and the whole house is coming down on top of me. He gasped, the emotion temporarily stealing the breath the boy had returned to him. I don't want to go with this weight on my heart. It's too heavy to carry across. The boy's touch was cool, steadying. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He didn't say, "It's okay," because it wasn't okay. It was broken. "You know wood, Robert," the boy said softly. "When you find a piece of oak with a deep, hard knot in it, what do? Do you throw it away?" Robert shook his head slowly, confused by the sudden change of subject. No, you work around it. Sometimes the knot is the strongest part of the wood. If you sand it too hard, you ruin the grain. You have to respect the knot." The boy smiled again, that ancient, knowing smile. "Your pride was the knot, Robert. It was hard, and it was ugly, but it was part of you. You couldn't sand it away, but you didn't respect it either. You let it stop you from building the rest of the house." The boy stood up, picking up his baseball glove. He walked to the window and looked out at the sleeping city. "David is in Seattle now," the boy said casually, looking at the street lamp below. "He owns a gallery. He paints landscapes that look like storms breaking over mountains. They are very beautiful. They look like what it feels like in this room right now." Robert's heart hammered against his ribs. How do you know that?" The boy turned back to him. "I see a lot of things. He has your jawline and your stubbornness." The boy walked back to the foot of the bed. The air in the room seemed to shimmer slightly around him. "You asked if you were dead. You're not. You were drowning in fear and regret, Robert. That's what was killing you faster than the disease, the weight of the unfinished." Can I fix it?" Robert pleaded, reaching out a hand toward the boy. "Do I have time?" The boy didn't answer the question directly. He looked at the heart monitor, which was beating with a strong, steady rhythm now. "The wood has settled, Mr. Hayes. The storm has broken. You can breathe now. The fear is gone because you finally said it out loud. You gave it to me." The boy began to walk toward the door. As he moved away from the bed, the oppressive weight didn't return, but a profound wave of exhaustion washed over Robert. Not the terrifying, airless exhaustion of before, but a warm, heavy sleepiness. "Wait!" Robert called out, his eyes fighting to stay open. "Will you come back when it's really time?" The boy stopped at the doorway. He looked back over his shoulder, a silhouette against the dim hallway light. "I don't know, Robert. Maybe. Or maybe it'll be someone else. Or maybe you won't need anyone at all, because the fear won't be there next time." He raised the hand with the baseball glove in a small wave. "Rest now, builder. You have work to do tomorrow." The boy stepped into the hallway and was gone. When Sarah arrived at 7 in the morning, steeling herself for the very end, she found her father sitting up in bed eating cherry jello. The doctors had no explanation. They used words like spontaneous stabilization and unprecedented rally. They cautioned that he wasn't cured, the underlying condition was still there, but the immediate crisis, the fluid in his lungs that was drowning him, had simply resolved overnight. Robert didn't tell him about the boy in the striped shirt. He knew they would just send in a psychiatrist. He felt weak, yes, but the heavy cloak of doom was gone. He looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and smiled. "Sarah, honey," he said, his voice clear, "can you bring me my phone? The old address book is in the side pocket of my bag." Sarah looked confused, but handed him the phone. Dad, who are you calling? Robert's thumb hovered over the keypad. His hands were shaking, but not from fear, from hope. He was an old carpenter, and he had one last, crucial beam to set in place before his house was finished. I have to make a call about a painting, Robert said, his eyes shining with tears that didn't hurt anymore. I hear it looks like a storm breaking over a mountain. He dialed the number he hadn't let himself look at in 15 years. It rang 3 times. Hello? This is Davy. The voice was deeper, older, but it was him. It was his son. Robert closed his eyes, inhaled a deep, sweet breath of air, and began the work he should have started years ago. David, it's me. It's your dad. Don't hang up, son. Please, I need to tell you something about the knots in the wood. We never know how much time we have left or who might appear to help us carry our burdens in the final miles. Robert Hayes got a reprieve, a chance to fix the foundation. But the true miracle wasn't the physical healing. It was the healing of his heart when he finally let go of his fear. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please share it with someone you need to reconnect with. Don't wait for the final hour. And remember to subscribe for more stories about the mysterious grace that finds us when we need it most. Until next time, keep breathing.